You wake up because your face is the only part of you touching cold air, and it hurts. Everything else is buried, wrapped in fur, pressed against three other bodies, half sunk into a pit lined with dried grass and ash. Somewhere above you, wind is doing something to the world that sounds like a low, continuous scream. You can smell tallow smoke, wet hide, and your own breath freezing an inch from your nose. There is no door. There is no roof, not really. Just bent mammoth ribs and stretched skin holding back a sky that wants you dead. And you are somehow warm enough to sleep again. So how did people survive an Ice Age winter with no real shelter? The obvious answer is fire. Just burn wood, stay warm, problem solved. Except for most of human history, in most of the coldest places on Earth, there wasn't enough wood to burn. No forests, no logs. Just tundra, wind, and cold that could kill an exposed human in under an hour. The real answer isn't about fire at all. It's about something far stranger. Here's what nobody tells you. Ancient humans didn't just endure the cold, they engineered around it. Using technology so effective some of it hasn't been meaningfully improved on in 30,000 years. Not caves, not campfires. Sewn clothing, underground architecture, and a genetic assist from a species that isn't even us anymore. And the evidence for this is genuinely staggering. Start at Denisova Cave in the Altai Mountains of Siberia. In 2016, archaeologists excavating the site's layers pulled out a fragment of a bone needle, eyed and polished. Dated to roughly 50,000 years old, one of the oldest sewing tools ever found. Not an awl for punching holes in leather. A needle, built for thread, built for fitted seams. That single object rewrites the assumption that ancient humans just draped animal hides over their shoulders like a cape. They were tailoring. Move west and forward in time to Sungir, near Vladimir, Russia, dated to about 34,000 years ago. Excavations led by Russian archaeologist Otto Bader in the 1950s, and continued by later teams, uncovered burials where thousands of ivory beads weren't scattered randomly. They traced the outline of garments that had long since rotted away. Researchers, including archaeologist Olga Soffer, reconstructed the shape from the bead patterns alone, fitted trousers, long-sleeved shirts, even soft boots. Not just clothing, layered clothing, close to the body, engineered for a climate that regularly dropped below -20 degrees Celsius. And here's the surprising context. This wasn't a lucky improvisation. It was a technology stack, needles, sinew thread, tanned hide, and tailoring knowledge that had to already exist and already be refined by the time anyone was buried in it. Which means the real breakthrough happened earlier, and mostly invisibly, because sewn fur doesn't survive tens of thousands of years the way stone tools do. Even further north, at Yana in Arctic Siberia, archaeologist Vladimir Pitulko's team found evidence humans were living above the Arctic Circle as early as 45,000 years ago, decades before anyone thought that was survivable at all. So if the clothing came first, what happened when clothing alone still wasn't enough? The conventional story is that Ice Age humans were essentially cave dwellers, duck into a rock shelter, wait out the winter, repeat. Except most of the coldest, most heavily populated Ice Age landscapes had no caves at all. The Mammoth Steppe, the vast frozen grassland that once stretched from Western Europe to Alaska, is almost entirely without caves. For a simple reason. It's mostly flat, treeless, ancient plain. So how do you shelter on a landscape with no rock, no wood, and no wall? At Mezhirich, in what is now Ukraine, archaeologists excavating in the 1960s and 70s uncovered something almost absurd. Circular dwellings built from the bones of at least 149 individual mammoths. Skulls stacked as foundation blocks. Tusks curved into doorframes. Long bones layered like architectural beams. The whole structure likely covered in hide and turf. Dated to around 15,000 years ago. Here's the theory that reframes everything. Archaeologist Olga Soffer and others have argued these weren't just houses. They were monuments to accumulated knowledge, proof that a group had hunted enough mammoths over enough generations to have a bone surplus to build with. You don't build a house out of an animal you've only killed once. Dry observation. Somewhere, an Ice Age architect looked at a pile of mammoth skulls and thought, this'll do. And it did. For longer than most of what we build today. What this actually means is bigger than architecture. It means winter survival wasn't a matter of finding the right cave and hiding. It was a matter of engineering shelter into existence from scratch, using whatever the ecosystem gave you, and doing it well enough that the structure outlasted the people who built it by tens of thousands of years. Clothing and architecture explain the outside. But there's an inside story too, written in DNA. In 2016, a team led by geneticist Rasmus Nielsen at UC Berkeley identified a gene variant called WARS2, along with a nearby gene called TBX15, in the genomes of modern Inuit and other circumpolar populations. Both variants trace back not to modern humans, but to Denisovans, an extinct human relative that interbred with our ancestors tens of thousands of years ago. These genes affect how the body distributes fat and regulates temperature, essentially fine-tuning cold tolerance at a cellular level. Think of it like inheriting someone else's thermostat settings, except the someone else was a different species, and the thermostat had already been field-tested against an ice age for hundreds of thousands of years before it ever reached you. Let that sink in. Some humans alive today are staying warm using a genetic toolkit borrowed from a species that no longer technically exists. This is the part clothing and mammoth-bone huts can't explain alone. Culture, the needles, the tailoring, the architecture, moved faster than evolution ever could. But biology was quietly doing its own version of the same job, passed down not through teaching but through inheritance, from an entirely different branch of the human family tree. This pattern, clothing plus architecture plus biology, isn't a one-time Ice Age fluke. It shows up everywhere humans meet extreme cold. Inuit and Inupiat communities across the Arctic independently developed multi-layered sealskin and caribou hide clothing systems, engineered with the same close-fitted logic as those Sungir garments, thousands of years and thousands of miles apart. Sami reindeer herders in northern Scandinavia built portable hide tents called lavu, using the same principle as the mammoth-bone dwellings. Build shelter from whatever the local megafauna provides in abundance. Even outside our species, Arctic foxes and musk oxen show convergent cold survival strategies. Dense layered coats, huddling behavior, drastically reduced surface heat loss. Solving the identical physics problem evolution keeps handing every mammal that pushes into the cold. Different continents, different centuries, different species even, same problem, and strikingly similar engineering. Here's the uncomfortable part. Every piece of this survival system, the needle, the hide, the mammoth bones, the borrowed Denisovan genes, came from something else's death. A mammoth herd hunted down to build a house. Thousands of animals skinned so a handful of humans could stay at 37 degrees Celsius while the world outside sat at -40. Survival, at this scale, was never a peaceful negotiation with nature. It was extraction, applied with extraordinary skill. And there's a second discomfort, quieter than the first, those Denisovans, whose genes are still quietly regulating fat storage in Arctic bodies today, are gone. Not adapted, not assimilated, extinct. As a distinct population, while a fragment of their biology outlived them by tens of thousands of years, working inside people who will never know their names, we tend to tell the Ice Age survival story as triumphant. Human ingenuity against an unforgiving planet. It's rarely told as what it might also have been. One population's extinction quietly subsidizing another population's ability to keep breathing through winter. The honest answer is, we still don't know exactly how the first sewn coat was invented, or which cold night forced someone to try turning a mammoth skull into a wall. We probably never will. The evidence rotted, burned, or got buried under 10,000 years of frost. But next time you zip up a jacket, tuck your chin into a scarf, or feel a shiver and instinctively curl toward another warm body, you're running a program that's at least 50,000 years old, patched together by people who never met you, using parts borrowed from a species that no longer exists. Winter didn't get easier. You just inherited a better coat.